Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Luis, and I'm your host. I hope you're happy, healthy, safe. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's talk about post-pandemic working environment. As you know, because of the pandemic, a lot of people ended up working remotely. As high as 70% of the US population at some point was working full-time from home. I mean, that is a huge increase, something that we've probably never seen before. And now that things are starting to open back up, there's still a very large percent of the population who's still working from home. There are estimates that somewhere around 0.25% of the US population will continue to work from home during the rest of 2021. And then the remainder will work remotely in some capacity, anywhere between 1 to 3 days per week. So what I wanted to talk about today when I chose the title for Giving Yourself a Raise Without Getting a Raise was the fact that there are some savings associated with working from home that you can take advantage of. If you've been listening to my show for a while, it's possible you might have heard me say how nature fills a void. And what I mean by that when it comes to finances is that it's very possible that we can get very easily used to a new environment where even if we're saving money, somehow we just end up spending the money that we normally would spend on something else. I usually give an example of people that I've known in the past who have made a lower salary. And then as life goes on, they increase their lifestyle to match their newfound income as they increase their pay because they got more educated, they got better jobs. And what I've seen happen a lot is that they get better cars, better houses. And a lot of the times the habits don't change. So the people that end up making twice or sometimes even more than they used to make end up still living paycheck to paycheck. They just have nicer things. And that has a lot to do with that concept of nature filling a void. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was figuring out a way for that not to happen to you. If you are one of the people who have been working from home and you have been able to save some money as a result, now that things are opening back up, I wanted to kind of put the focus on what to do with the funds that have been saved. And if you haven't saved it, maybe you can get back to that, because there's a great opportunity there for you to have more money without making more money. One of the things that I've seen that is a huge cost savings is commuting, whether it's gas, wear and tear on your car. I know some people that pay for parking just to go to work that the employer doesn't provide. I know people that work in the city and they have to pay for parking. I know people who have to pay for tolls. They might work in, say, like New Jersey and drive to New York for a job or vice versa. And those that don't drive can have commuting expenses as well, right? A train, subway, things like that. So that is a pretty high expense right there. And it's something that a lot of people no longer have because they have the flexibility of working from home. So what I wanted to do is say, hey, let's continue to make believe we have that expense and instead reallocate it towards something else, which I'm going to get into. Another way that you can save money is on food itself. And a lot of people, very busy, they have to get to work fast, drop off kids, things of that sort. So they end up buying lunch, buying coffee when they go to work. And now they're working from home. And if that's the case, well, the money you used to spend that you had allocated towards buying yourself lunch or coffee could then be reallocated somewhere else, Also, things like work clothes, you probably don't need as many, right? I was actually laughing because I was talking to a client of mine earlier today, and he was talking about he went some sort of job interview and he was wearing like the shirt and tie and the suit, and then he had like sweatpants underneath. And it was just funny, but it's just reality. A lot of us are not necessarily having to continue to buy so many work clothes just because we're not going into the actual office. Or maybe you don't have to get your hair done and things like that as often. So that's another way of cost savings. But it can be very easy for us to kind of not pay attention to that and somehow find a way to spend that money. And these things are done unconsciously a lot of the times where we don't even realize like, oh, wow, I was spending, one of the articles I was reading when I was preparing for this was that on average during COVID-19, a lot of employees were saving somewhere around $500 per month just because they were working from home. I know there was obviously a lot of crazy things to get adjusted to, especially if you have kids, like the childcare situation. That was a challenge. Some people were able to make it work where the kids were taking their classes in one room and they were working from the other. So they ended up saving that money as well. Some people were not as lucky, and I've seen spouses where they had to get a reduced work schedule or even not work anymore just because of the whole childcare situation. And hopefully that begins to change. But ultimately, I think there's an opportunity here for you to take a lot of these savings from whether it was commuting, lunch, work clothes, childcare, et cetera, to take that money and then reroute it towards something else that you can then use to put yourself ahead. One of the things I always tell people, the very first place you should look at is your emergency savings. COVID-19 really brought this into focus, how important it is for you to have savings, because sometimes there are things that would happen beyond your control, like a job loss, a death, et cetera, that could put you in a really tough bind. And COVID-19 was one of them. A lot of people saw themselves unemployed, and maybe they weren't ready enough to withstand the storm and wait until they were able to get a job or wait for unemployment to kick in and things of that sort. So the very first thing I tell people to look at is take a look at your personal emergency savings and stress that and ask yourself, what would happen if I lost my income today or one of our incomes if you're a couple? How long can you go without replacing that income? Basically, how long can your savings replace the income you lost? How long can you take out the take-home pay that you were getting from your savings to allow for the other income to kick in from a new job? And that could be anything, right? It could be like even like a short-term disability that could happen, that you just lose your income. So that's something that you definitely want to consider. Normally, as financial planners, we tell people at the very minimum, you should have somewhere around 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Now, with the pandemic, if you can make it even higher, then that will be even better. If you can make it a year, that would be even better, right? But at a very minimum, somewhere around 3 to 6 months will be something you want to do, because sometimes things happen and you want to make sure that your financial plan does not get derailed just because you lost some income for a month or two. You could prepare for that. And one of the opportunities that you have right now, if you are one of those employees who are working from home and have these savings, you could reroute some of those funds to building that emergency savings. And you can do so without having to make more money. Another thing you could do is you can combine certain things that have also been a result of the pandemic with the increased savings. There are people who have student loans, for example, who are currently in deferment until September, and they have been for over a year. Now, you can take those payments and also combine it to the savings you were having, and now you can basically supercharge your savings because you're taking into account money that you're not spending from a deferment on a student loan, and also money you're not spending by the fact that you're working from home, and really take charge. And this is why it's so important to work with a financial planner as well, because he or she can help you make these decisions, right? As to, based on your goals and your current situation, where can we put this money? So building emergency savings could be one of them. Paying higher interest credit card debt could be another. In the example before, if you were paying 0% on your student loans, maybe you can take that payment and send it to your 15% credit card instead, right? Because it's just, you owe a certain amount of money. If one of them is 0% and is not currently accumulating any more interest, and the other one is 15%, but maybe you can reroute those dollars until the student loan kicks in. It's another option. What if you don't have debt and you already have your emergency savings? Well, or maybe you can start paying off those student loans even faster and take advantage of the fact that they are in fact 0% right now, and just send extra principal payments so that when the interest rate kicks in again, you've already put down a nice chunk on that money, right? Or maybe it's a great opportunity for you to either start contributing to your 401k if you haven't done so already. Take a look at your employer plan, see if your employer matches anything. If you are already contributing, maybe this is the opportunity where you can give yourself that raise and say, okay, I'm going to actually increase my contribution to my 401k. If you don't get a 401k option, or you're already maxing out, or you already have taking advantage of the employer match, another option is to open up a Roth IRA. There are some income limitations, but that might be another opportunity for you to start saving for your own future. What if you have kids or a kid and you haven't started saving for their college yet? Maybe you can reroute some of those funds to open a college plan, a 529 plan, which gives you some tax advantages as well as some growth over time if you invest it, right? What about a vacation fund? Maybe a lot of planners might not even bring this up because not everything is about saving money. It's also quality of life. So what if you have not gone? I was actually thinking about this, talking to my wife. We haven't gone to a vacation since, actually just gone anywhere since I think it was November of 2019 that I had a conference in Denver or something like that. So it's been like a very long time, right? And we were like, it's long overdue. Things are opening back up. But that's another thing you could do. Normally, if you have not been able to build up your vacation fund, instead of tapping into your savings, where now you can take these savings that you're getting every month, build your your vacation fund, and finally take that vacation. That's probably very long overdue, right? We all need to take that break from time to time. And if you already have all that taken care of, then just super boost your savings for whatever the future might bring, whether it's having just more in your emergency savings or just having more money invested, or maybe you want to buy a home and you can now speed up the amount of money you save towards that down payment. There's a lot of flexibility that you can have by taking advantage of the fact that you have less expenses. And now you can combine it with other things. For example, if you have kids and you qualify for the child tax credit, the expanded child tax credit, which I go into a lot of detail on episode 68. So if you haven't heard it yet and you have kids, be sure to listen to episode 68 on mywaytowealth.com or on any major podcasting platform that you're currently listening to, or on YouTube. Child tax credit, you have the option of starting to take a monthly check from July to December for half of your child tax credit. The other half you will claim in your 2021 tax return when you file in 2022. But yet that's another thing. So imagine you have savings from working from home, savings for not having to pay your student loan. Now you're going to get actual money from the child tax credit in the mail. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And these are the kinds of things that you really should start considering, because it's just found money, right? Without having to make more. Think about how many times do we get this opportunity, have more money coming in without having to actually go there and work for it. So please think about this. Speak to your financial planner and see what ways you can take advantage of this money and put it to your advantage. It's a great opportunity. And also, there's a lot of other things that we can raise as working from home that are not necessarily money related. And that could be just your health. Now that you have gained some time back in your day, you're not commuting. Think about it. Even if you commuted a half hour a day in the morning, half hour at night, we're talking about a full hour here, right? So can you now get that workout in or that walk that you never had a chance to because you had to rush home and prepare meals, pick up kids, whatever? Well, now you have an hour back in your day. Well, maybe it's time for you to just take that quick 20-minute walk around couple of blocks around the neighborhood, or maybe you could work out at home. So make believe you still were commuting, but instead of being in your car, do some exercise, read a book, listen to that podcast, watch those videos that are self-enhancing, right? On YouTube or whatever it is that makes you feel good, right? So give yourself that kind of raise. Your mental health needs it. Your physical health needs it. Your quality of life, maybe spend more time with your spouse or with your kids that now you have gained back in your day, because there's a lot of time that was wasted before when it was working physically, whether it was meetings at work or just chit chat around the office or driving back and forth. So part of the studies that I was reading said that employees are actually more productive now that they're working from home. And I completely understand that. But that also could lead to burnout because a lot of people are working a lot more because they are home, and I've fallen in that trap where I just sit at my desk for hours on end. And sometimes you forget to take a break for yourself. And, some people, depending on the relationship with their managers and bosses, they might feel like they need to show that they're working. And sometimes that ends up being where they're working even more than they were before. So be sure to take advantage of not having to commute and other things like that and give yourself that raise as well, the raise of health, mental health. Give yourself a break, right? So it's not all about money. Quality of life has a lot to do with it. So I hope that you have learned something here, or at least started to think differently about the opportunities that working from home has brought us, and that you can take advantage of one or two things. So think about this. What are you going to do going forward as a result of those savings working from home if you happen to be an employee that has been saving money because of working from home? What are you going to do? Are you going to start working out? Are you going to spend more time with your family? Are you going to build your emergency savings? Are you going to start paying off more to your credit card debt or your student loans? Are you going to start investing more? Are you going to raise your 401k contributions? Are you going to start that college plan that you haven't started yet? Are you going to open up a Roth IRA or start contributing more? There's a lot of stuff you can do. I want you to think of two things that you can do, or even one thing. If you can take anything away, what is one action you're going to change? Even if it's a 15-minute walk around your neighborhood, what are you going to change? I would love to hear about it, by the way. So if you care to share, send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. One thing I started doing recently, I started to read more. So I have 4 books currently that I have not started, and because I'm finishing up another one, and I'm just going right into the next one. So there's mine right there. I'm reading more, and I'm being more consistent with my workout as well. So no excuses. Take charge. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.